Did
Yes,
you
yeah.
think when you were leaving Nigeria that you will get a scholarship when you arrive?
I left in 2019, I think April of 22. Wow, almost
Okay.
6 years. I left in April of 2019.
Which means you didn't finish your program. So what happened? The plan was for you to return to Nigeria and then your parents will gather some money and then let you go back to UIC to finish the program, right?
Well, I did have a good CGPA. I was at the time I left, I was at a 3.98 out of 4.
Okay, so at the airport, when you arrived in Nigeria, what was the scene like?
I did mention that I was given 2 months to, I'm sorry, 2 weeks to leave the
Mm,
country. At the time I was given that information, my passport was actually expired. So I had to renew my passport. And so I had to go to Atlanta to get that done.
mm.
So in the process of waiting for the new one to come in, I did overstay my time in America by a little bit. I remember my dad tried to get me to look at schools in Ghana, which I did.
Have you been able to pay off all your fees at UIC?
As of now, I don't even know how much my balance is. Actually, I gave up on that a while ago.
As someone who graduated as the overall best student, right, of a Nigerian institution, I'm just, wondering how you study. Is there something that helps you when you are studying? All right, before we start, consider subscribing to the channel. This helps me so much. Thank you. You're actually the first Nigerian that I'm having on this ShaiPod. I've spoken with a lot of Nigerians on the other, channel, those who reached out for mock session, and then I've interviewed Queen and Karen, who are on the journey, the study abroad journey, and all of that. But yeah, for this channel, you are the first person from Nigeria, so that's really exciting. So I want to know, when did you come to the US and what did you come to do?
I moved to Chicago in 2016. I believe that was after I had my A level program. And I had moved there because I got admitted into UIC to study biochemistry. So that was why I moved to Chicago.
Okay. Did you get a scholarship before you left? Did the school give you any scholarship?
So it was fully funded by my parents. I didn't have any financial funding from the school or any external sources. So no, I did not.
Yeah. Were you aware of the fact that you could have gotten like a full scholarship from UIC?
I mean, if I'm being honest,
Yeah.
I UIC was not really my personal first choice. I
Mm,
had wanted to actually go to UK, so I was putting
okay.
a lot of effort into getting scholarships or some sort of funding from them. And UIC, so America was not really top of my priority; it was my dad's priority at the time. So of all the
Mm,
schools I applied to, UIC was the only school that accepted me. So my dad was like, you know what, this is where you're going. So I wasn't really
okay.
keen on finding. I feel like I was also
Yeah.
very young and I was just receptive to anything that sort of happened at the time. So not my
Yeah.
mind honestly never went there. So I no, I feel like going back, it probably should, but I think things
Yeah.
happen for a reason. So there we go.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. And at the time your cost of attendance was probably like $60,000, right? Per
I
year.
mean, okay, yeah. Okay, well, no, it was 15,000 actually per
15.
semester.
Okay.
15. So
Just
for the
a
whole
just the tuition or everything
I think everything actually. I think it
was
was
15,000.
everything. It was fifteen
Okay.
thousand, and I feel like UIC. Like now, I think about it, they were quite lenient because they had in-state tuition, they had out-of-state tuition, then had international tuition. So my tuition
Yeah.
was 15,000 for housing, school, and everything. So for a year, it was like 30K. So not so bad.
Okay. 30K. Okay. So 30K, which was going to be taken care of by your parents. Did
Yes.
you think when you were leaving Nigeria that you will get a scholarship when you arrive?
Honestly, no. I mean, no. I mean when I did get there, I started looking at some options, like potential options, even if it's for like a grant or some sort of
Yeah.
scholarship. And I looked at the because UIC does have a scholarship page, and
Mm-hmm.
I feel like maybe they've changed now, or maybe I just didn't see it at the time. But there were
Mm,
not a lot of options for black people from African countries. They had
yeah.
options for Indians, Asians, a number of places, but none for Africans from Africa. I feel like
Yeah.
maybe I didn't see it, but I honestly didn't see anything on that website. I tried different websites, like because UIC they have and like I said, they have like an actual scholarship website that then takes you to external pages, and we're just
Yeah.
very limited resources for my kind of person. So I was when I was interested in finding, I wasn't able to find. So no.
Mm. But what about the international office? Did you reach out to them to find out about this?
I didn't know. I feel like I don't know. From now that when I think of my journey at UIC, I feel like there
Yeah.
are a number of things I didn't really explore as much as I should have, and I wasn't really in touch with the international office up until I needed like I don't want to say emergency help from them, which was
Yeah.
quite late. So I feel and things that so they did like because they did email me like they had programs and things that they did because UIC that's something I loved about them. There was always somewhere you could sort of feel at home. And they were called the OIS office, so Office of International Studies or something like that. So the
Yeah.
OIS office, they did send me emails, and I just never went for any. I feel like maybe if I had made more effort, I could
Yeah.
have had like a much more different experience. And I would say also another reason why I wasn't really doing like finding myself in those OIS events was because none of my friends at the time were doing those things. And obviously, you're in college, even if you want to try new things, you mostly would find yourself doing the things your current friends are doing,
Yeah.
and none of them were doing that. So they were maybe ASC, university ambassadors, something else, but just not that. And I feel like I just didn't want to now start afresh again. So yeah, I feel like there are lots of
Yeah.
untapped resources. I just
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So your friends, were they your Nigerian friends? Were they from Nigeria or American citizens?
I did have a mix of friends. So I'll say my
Okay.
closest friends from UIC were Nigerians, but Nigerians in diaspora. So they didn't
Okay.
really have the same background I did. Even those that maybe grew up in Nigeria or lived in Nigeria for longer periods, they had family over there. So it wasn't really the same thing like me. I had all my
Yeah.
family in Nigeria. So we were friends. And then my other friends were just black people or white people. Like there wasn't I mean with
Yeah.
I mean there were some Nigerians from Nigeria that I knew, but they were just not as close to me as my other friends. So I was mostly with my Nigerian friends from Nigerian diasporan friends, if that makes
Yeah.
sense. So
Yeah. That makes sense. Yeah. And when you arrived in the US, how did you settle into your new apartment? Who picked you up from the airport
I
and
mean
all that?
this like I said, I was quite young, so I just sort of
Yeah.
left everything to my parents. So when I got the admission to UIC, my dad and my parents were the ones that sorted everything out. They found someone actually. I don't know how they found her. I think Facebook or something. They found her on Facebook and reached out to her that, oh look, we have this person coming in. Can you take her in? So she
Mm,
was one, and I don't think my parents. Okay, my mom met her when she came to visit me in Chicago, but my dad never officially met her. It was just through social media. So she was one who came to pick me up, and because I stayed in the school apartment until my junior year, where my brother moved to Chicago, so we got a place together. So I was in the hostels. Yeah, I was in the dormitories for my first 2 years. Then holidays, I would be with her or her family. So that was the person that I had, and honestly, settling in, I feel like my first roommates, I had a double, then I got a single because I didn't enjoy my experience my freshman year.
yeah.
But and I feel like definitely I'm a believer, so I feel like things happen for a reason. Things don't just I don't believe in coincidence. So I feel like the lady that helped me there, she was a member of a church. And I think before I moved to the school, she took me for a wedding, a court wedding. I don't really know, I don't remember exactly, but she took me somewhere. It was like a church event, but it was a wedding for a church member. I don't know. And then someone introduced himself to me and was just asking me questions. Oh, you're with her. What's your name? And then I explained I'm from Nigeria. I'm here to go to UIC. I was like, oh, wow, that's cool. I'm also going to UIC. I'm starting UIC. And he mentioned, oh, he's
Mm,
in so and so hostel. And I was like, oh, that's cool. So I moved my hostel to be in the same hostel, not in the same place, but in the same hostel. So at least someone I know.
yeah.
So that was one of my first friends at UIC, and we're still friends till now. And then he had an older sister who was also at UIC. So she also sort of helped me sort of find my footing. And then I think his sister took me for like an African event. I don't know. I really
Mm.
it's so weird how things sort of fell into place. So she took me for this event, and at that place, I met another Nigerian who up to date is like one of my favorite people in the world. And she basically took me like a very like it's weird to meet with someone you just meet now and just like accept them 100%. So she
Yeah,
did that for me. Through her, I got to make new friends, and I feel like just those little people around me. That was honestly how I don't know how like now if I move abroad, I feel like I would probably find it hard to like settle in as I did then because it was very easy to just find so many people that just loved me for me. So I don't know.
yeah,
I didn't have a hard time settling in. If anything, the weather was my problem, not really the people or the culture or
yeah,
anything. So it was a good experience. It was a good experience.
yeah. I think there are a lot of international students now, so it will be very easy for you to settle in,
Yeah,
regardless of
I
where
think
you go
that
to. I
suits
think.
me. Yes, that's
Yeah,
definitely one thing I loved about studying abroad. So yeah, for sure, for sure.
yeah. You mentioned you studied your A level before you came to University of Chicago, um, University of Illinois at Chicago. But did you take the SAT? Because normally, if you want good scholarships, you have to, have the SAT. Did you have the SAT at the time?
Yes, I did do the SATs, and there were a bunch of exams that we had to do. I think it was just I didn't do TOEFL at the time. I just did
Okay,
the
the
SATs, and I think I
SAT.
wrote it twice. I don't actually don't remember.
Yeah,
Feel like it's been so long. I think I did it twice actually, right when I left high school, and then during my A levels. I think so. Yeah, I did do the SATs.
yeah. So you arrived in 2016. When when did you leave the US?
I left in 2019. I think April of 22. Wow, almost
Okay.
6 years. I left in April of 2019. So, yeah.
Which means you didn't finish your program. So what happened?
So at the time I got to UIC. Okay, so disclaimer, I grew up I don't say spoiled, but privileged. Let me use that word. So
Yeah,
my dad sort of was always the one sponsoring everything. I had well-to-do parents, and life was just smooth sailing, if I may.
yeah,
So I think by my 11th year in high school, my dad lost his job with the company he was in, but we're all still, let's just say, cruising.
yeah,
If I mean, my brother went to America. He went to San Francisco for school. So I'm the second. So I went to Chicago. So for like the things were still sort of smooth sailing, but then I feel like I started to notice a problem more or less when so the way UIC works is that you register for a semester and then you pay for that semester during the semester. So when you finish your payment, that's when they open your registration for the next semester. So you can
mm,
take a semester without paying. So
yeah,
it wasn't until I needed to pay for my next semester that I realized, okay,
yeah,
something doesn't feel 100%. But then we're able to sort that out, we're able to come to an agreement, we split up into like a payment plan. And that was what we kept doing. And then I think by my sophomore year, I wanted to take summer classes because I felt like that would reduce my number of
yeah,
years. Because UIC was not really like a straight up 4 year program. Whenever you finish your required courses, you graduate. So from what it was looking like, I could have had like maybe 4.5, 5 years. So I was like, a summer
mm,
semester would reduce that. So I took a summer class and then I took then my um, junior year, the first semester, I took it. So when it was now time to register for the second semester, I mean, I wasn't surprised that I had an overdue balance because that always happened. It was just that we'll have the balance and then we'll split it and pay. And so I wasn't like very worried about it. But then I started to get more panicked when it was getting closer to resumption and I wasn't hearing anything from my parents. I was
yeah,
texting like, okay, this what is going on? I haven't registered and all of that. And that's when I sort of started noticing that okay, something is probably wrong. And I don't remember exactly when it happened or how it happened, but I think they sort of had not a sit down because they went there with me physically, but maybe like a call down, let's just say, and like they explained that this is the current situation. You need like this is what's
wow,
happening. We're not able to pay for this coming like we can't pay your overdue balance and all of that. So I took it. I was like, okay, fine, that's good. let me do what I usually do, which is go to the office, we'll come up with a strategy, split it, open registration. I was all good. So I go to the lady, and she was such a like she really really helped. I feel like I was more friends with the financial office than the OIS office. Reasons unknown. So she explained that the amount I had due was way too much, and that the only way they could help me for the coming semester was to pay 50% down, and then they split what was left. I was like, okay, fine, that's cool. I go to my parents, oh, this is what she said. I'm like, okay, we can't pay the 50%, so what else can be done? I go back to Lydia and I'm like, okay, this is what they
Yeah.
said. Da, da, da. And she was like, there's really nothing she can do unless you're able to pay the 50. And that was really when my panic began to set in, because I think this happened around November, December. Spring semester starts in January, so I was then beginning. Okay, fine, what is going to happen? And I think and I know I remember my second semester at UIC. I remember I didn't register for classes until like 2 weeks after courses started, so I really wasn't like worried. I was like, okay, fine, and
Yeah.
I didn't really like. I wasn't like lagging behind when that happened. So I was like, it's all cool. So even when the semester started, I was like, I still have time. And then I went to the lady again, and she's like, "Oh, you're even an international student. Best to meet them and see what can be done." So I go to the OIS office, and they're like, "Oh, that why didn't I come sooner? That for someone with my GPA and all of that, there would have been things they could do. But right now, it's quite late for them to start doing anything. That I have like limited time to even be in America, because being an international student, you have to actually be taking classes for you to retain your
Yeah.
visa status." And they're like, "Oh, I
Yeah.
have about 2 weeks or so to leave the country." And I'm like, I thought it was a joke,
Wow.
because I was like it just, I feel like it just didn't seem so real, because here are my friends and things that not all my friends knew exactly what was going on. Only like two of them knew, which were the two I mentioned. The guy that I met, and then
Mm.
the girl I met at the African event. They really knew what was going on. And I feel like that's when I decided joining that almost, I'm sorry, I don't think you understand Nigeria.
It's just feel
Yeah,
free. Yeah.
it was a lot. And at the when I explained that, okay, fine, I feel like I tried so many offices and just trying to find help. And then when it came down to the point that there was really nothing anyone could do at such a late time, I now went to my parents and like, okay, fine, this is what's going on. And they're like, oh, no worries, you can take a semester off and then come back to Nigeria, and then we'll sort of recuperate, and you go back and just start like continue where you left off. So that
Mm.
was really, yeah, I feel like looking back, I feel like if I wasn't as relaxed as I was, which no fault to anyone. I mean,
Yeah.
grew up
So.
privileged that still were like toe to toe fighting for themselves. But I don't. I feel like looking back, things happened the way they should.
Mm.
So yeah, yeah, just it was an interesting experience. I mean, interesting
Wow.
now, not interesting then. So,
Yeah. Of
but
course.
yeah,
Yeah. So the plan was for you to return to Nigeria, and then your parents will gather some money and then let you go back to UIC to finish the program, right?
yeah.
At the time, you had done 3 years of your program, two and a half. Wow. So when when you realized that you were supposed to go home, right, to Nigeria, how did you feel? Like what was going through your mind? Because I don't know how I can, be in your shoes, like, because this is
I
it must have
mean,
been difficult for you.
it was difficult, honestly. And I remember when I finally told and because my friend group were about 8 to 11, so only
Yeah.
like two of them really knew. So I remember at the time I finally told everyone what was going on. I think we had gone out for dinner or something, and we're all just like sharing things. It was quite a touching moment. So I just brought it
Wow.
up to them. I was like, oh my god, that's like, and some didn't even know I was an international student, just assumed I was an
Mm.
out of state,
Yeah.
whatever. So I expressed that to them. And the entire idea was to go home, recuperate, come back.
Yes,
So it
I'm back.
wasn't really
Yeah.
like I was leaving them, it was just for like a semester. So yeah, I feel I was kind of sad having to leave, because I feel
Mm.
like when you sort of accustomed yourself to certain things, like
Yeah.
having to start fresh was kind of, it's always going to be a process. But in my
Mm.
head, I was like, it's really not a big deal. I'm going to be back. I literally didn't even pack up my apartment. I did move my clothes to a storage, but like most of my stuff was still in my apartment because I'm like I'm just going to gone for like a couple of months because this was like in April. Next semester starts August, so it wasn't so much of a gap. I was like
Yeah.
I'm leaving for a while, so I wasn't really worried. I felt like I was sad, but not like upset, crazy upset about the whole thing. So
Mm.
yeah,
What happened to your things when you left?
I ended up I ended up having to get the lady who sort of mentored me while I was there, if not so to
Mm.
speak. She ended up having to call movers to gather the furniture. But
Mm.
my clothes, they were moved to my. It was quite a process, honestly. I didn't get my clothes, like all my clothes, back till last year. So
Wow,
yeah, yeah,
that's
exactly.
so
It's
many years
definitely
after that. Wow.
so many years. Like when I saw my stuff, I was just like the memories and everything was
Yeah.
it was nostalgic, yeah. But I remember so my clothes were in a storage, and the way it works, you have to pay monthly. So I was making the payments because like my American account was still active. I still had some money there, so I was paying. And then when I wasn't able to pay, it was moved to a friend's place
Wow.
for years, and then he moved to another friend's place, and then she was the one who helped me send it back home. So yeah, it was
Wow.
definitely it was something. It was something.
Wow. At the time you were having financial issues, did you do some campus jobs because you could have done like 20 hours? Did you try anything like that to get some money?
I did actually did have a student job while I was at
Okay.
UIC, but being an international student, the same rules did not apply to us. So I think those that were what's it called, regular student. For me, I could only get a student job,
Yeah.
and then if I was going to work outside of the school, it has to be in a field relating to my course of study. And
Yeah.
as a biochemist, that meant hospitals, to my
Wow.
knowledge at the time. And honestly, I did not.
Wow.
I'm not inclined. The medical thing was always my dad's idea. I was just more like, okay, fine, that's what you want. But I wasn't really keen on working in a hospital or anything. So I had a student job. So that job was, and so even with our student job, we had limited number of hours. I think we could only work like I think 20 hours a week.
20 hours, yeah.
Yes, and then others like regular. Let me not say regular. So international students 20 hours. The rest of people will be I think up to 40 hours. So as a student worker, you obviously have other colleagues you're working with. So we had
Yeah.
to split the schedule. So I basically was only working like let's say 10 hours a week, and if I pick up like an extra shift, that would maybe top 15 or 12. So that job was only paying for like my menial expenses like
Yeah.
clothes, feeding, not really feeding per se, but maybe if I'm going out with friends. So it wasn't really like a lot was coming
Yeah.
from the job. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that's actually true. Yeah. Student jobs, you don't really get much. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so
But how was your performance at UIC? You won some awards, right?
well,
Stream.
I did have a good CGPA. I was at the time I left, I was at a 3.98 out of 4.
Wow.
So I would say my grades were pretty good. With in regards to awards, I mean the main one I typically got was one I nominated myself for, which I feel definitely put yourself out there and all of that. And the other one I remember winning, I think a teacher nominated me or something. I just got an email about it. So it was for my one of my biology courses. And so yeah, I think I was doing pretty well at uni.
Yeah. Wow. So 3.98, what happened to the 0.02?
It was physics. I don't know. Physics is not my favorite science course, and it was a practical physics, and I got a B, which was I literally was a few points away from an A. I don't know why she decided not to give it to me, but it's what it
Wow,
is.
3.98.
So yes, yeah.
That's amazing. Okay, so at the airport when you arrived in Nigeria, what was the scene like? Did you cry?
No, I feel like no. When I got in, like people always say this thing that people that live abroad, whenever they come to like, you just know that you're in like you just like there's something about the atmosphere that just reminds that oh my yes you're back. So the heat, I feel like the first thing was the heat. It was
Yeah,
unbelievably hot, and
yeah,
just coming from the windy city, I like it was unbelievably hot, and I was honestly just excited to see my parents. I think I remember and things that we have these people that sort of beg or dupe you. So I did get duped at the airport. They sensed an accent somewhere. Like whenever they see a white person or a black person with an accent, it's like, wow, this they can extort more money from you. So that did happen to
Yeah.
me. But I was like, it's Nigerian to happen. So I was like, what else? I was just excited about seeing my parents. I hadn't seen my dad since I moved in
Mm,
2016. My mom had come to visit, I think 2017 or so. So I had seen her. I had seen my little sister. So I was just very excited to see my family. So I think I was just very, very, I don't know, I was quite happy, but not sad, honestly. I was just happy,
yeah.
if I'm being honest.
But you enjoyed your time in the US, right?
Yes, for
You had a
sure.
good
I feel
time.
like I always
Mm,
say America is not anywhere. I know I'm going to be back. I just don't know when or
yeah.
how, but I really, really I loved my time there. It was really
Uh, so in your journey, it means that you did not stay out of status, right, while you were in the US.
cool. Yeah, what I said was
Mm,
that I did mention that I was given 2 months to, I'm sorry, 2 weeks to leave the
mm,
country. At the time I was given that information, my passport was actually expired. So I had to renew my passport. And so I had to go to Atlanta to get that done.
mm,
So in the process of waiting for the new one to come in, I did overstay my time in America by a little bit.
mm,
But I don't think it's so much so that
yeah.
I would be in trouble with the government or anything.
Uh, yeah, and I think the fact that you left on your own too, yeah, okay, that makes sense. Yeah. So mentally, how did you cope with the, in quotes, disappointments at the time?
I remember the day I came back to Nigeria and I
Mm,
finally got home. My parents, because it was me and my brother, we were living together, so we both came home. My parents sat both of us down and just sort of explained the situation to us. That okay, fine, you're home. Do you have any plans or anything you want to do before you go back? So my entire mind was, you're going to go back. So I was like, yeah, sure.
mm,
I'm looking to get a job, just something to keep me busy and all of
yeah.
that. So I got a job with a fashion company as the sales intern slash sales attendant. So I did that for a while. So I think
Mm,
it was not until August when I got a notification that I had an upcoming flight, which was my flight back to Chicago, that I started to process things differently. I feel like up until then I mean, while I was working, I was still like following up with my parents that is there any news,
yeah.
any positive news, and nothing was really forthcoming. So slowly it began to dawn on me that my reality would be different from what I thought it would. And so it took some getting used to, and it was moments of sadness or just, yeah, it was just a lot of emotions and everything. But then I
Mm,
had to, like, when my flight day came and left, I remember I was at work that day and I was just thinking to myself that okay, so now what? And it definitely was
wow.
quite a lot to process and everything. So,
Mm,
but yeah.
yeah. So then what happened after that when you realized that you wouldn't be able to return in that August?
Then I was like, okay, fine. If I'm not going to be able to attend in August, maybe by January I would be able to
Yeah.
just okay, fine. I
You
took
were still
an entire
hoping.
gap
Yeah.
year.
Mm,
I was really still hoping. So I started looking at more options for financing because my parents mentioned that they were not going to be able to actually pay the
mm,
balance.
yeah.
So, but I started looking for options myself. I started looking at grants, scholarships, trying to reach out to people that I thought could potentially help. At a point, I opened a GoFundMe page. I did do quite a number of things, just hoping to leave the country and go back to school. Because also at the time, I started getting more questions from people in Chicago that, oh, hey, Joy, what's up? What's going on? And it
And
was becoming like, initially people
yeah.
just as because when you're in America or abroad, you people diasporans usually come back for like a while. So initially people thought that was just what was going on. People that didn't really know specifics just thought, okay, fine, she's on a holiday and she'll be back. So when that wasn't happening, people now started asking questions and having to just explain to people, it was just getting more and more frustrating. Then my GoFundMe happened, and that's when people realized that okay, this was actually why Joy left. And I received a good amount of love, a good amount of support, and everything. And I did, but I was able to pay up a part of what I owed, but it wasn't. And the thing with UIC is that your fees go up. They have what they call late fees. So the more you owe, the higher
Yeah.
up your fees go. So each more and things that the more you owe, the more you owe. So like it just keeps going up, just keeps going up. So yeah, I feel like the late fees itself were a problem on their own because it wouldn't stop. They would always email you. They were bugging me at a point. So it was just a lot to sort of deal with and come to terms with. So I honestly, whenever I tell people I don't specifically remember how I got through it, because it really felt like a lot. I remember there was a day I wasn't able to go to work because I was crying nonstop, just thinking. And it literally happened the year I was supposed to be getting ready to graduate. So seeing my friends that we all were in the same class together, we went to CAF together, we played together, just seeing them prepare for graduation was very heartbreaking. I feel like that for me was the biggest,
Yeah.
my biggest breaking point. I usually try
Yeah.
not to compare myself to other people, but from someone who almost all the time I was the youngest in my class, or like the smart, not let not say smartest, but the youngest in my class, feeling like I was now behind schedule just really sucked at the time.
Yeah.
So it was, and I'm honestly grateful for the friends I had that were able to not see me through per se, but just support me, like be there for me when I needed to cry or just talk and cheer me up when I needed it. I was honestly just very grateful for that. So when I finally realized, okay, you're not going back to UIC, what can you do? I feel like I initially did not want to accept that I was not going back to US because in my head I'm like, it's either I start again or I just go back. And I really did not want to start again. I just didn't want to. And I remember my dad tried to get me to look at schools in Ghana, which I did, but they all wanted me to start again. And I'm like, and my
Yeah.
dad was still sort of keen on the whole medical medicine approach and all of that. Even I did look at some schools in Nigeria at the time, but not really intently. They were all saying like, "Oh, you have to start again." You have, and I'm just like, "Start again, spend an extra 6 years." It
Yeah.
just didn't seem plausible to me. So it really was, and this happened. I think that was right when COVID sort of happened. So that 2020 when there was lockdown, I had a lot of time to just think about my life, and
Yeah.
it wasn't really a good picture I was seeing. So I feel like I don't like saying depression. I feel like I was sad most of the time that year because I did quit my job early 2020 because I'm like the job was sort of not distracting me, but they didn't want me to like do personal things on work time, which is understandable. But I was trying
Mm.
to find solutions, and I needed time to like look up scholarships and apply, and they didn't want me to do that. So I quit the job to focus on that. So I didn't really have a source of income. A lot was going on, honestly. It
Yeah.
was really, really a lot. So
Yeah. I mean, you are human, and whatever you felt, everyone would have felt the same way. So
yeah, for sure.
yeah, but at least you actually recovered. Not many people are able to recover from that. So, and you didn't just recover, but you recovered brilliantly. So that's actually a big deal. Wow.
Thank you. Thank you.
That's yeah, that's so did you look at like community colleges or something because they tend to have low tuition and all of that, when you wanted to come back?
Not really.
Okay.
I feel like I wanted to come back to just UIC. So
UIC.
I
Mm,
wasn't really looking at other places. And I remember even when I took my summer class at UIC, I did apply for summer classes at a community college.
mm,
And I just didn't like my experience there. Like I don't know.
mm,
I don't know. Maybe it was just me,
yeah,
but I wasn't really keen on finding something else.
yeah.
So no.
What about the GoFundMe? So did you have you been able to pay off all your fees at UIC?
As of now, I don't even know how much my balance is. Actually, I gave up on that a while ago. So I was at the time. I remember I was owing about, was it 22,000? So it was like a whole
Wow.
semester was my summer semester, and then the late fees. And no, actually, it was 18,000. Yes, it was 18,000, but the late fees just kept. I don't know. They made every. I feel like the late fees made it worse because
Yeah.
you would think
The
I've
interest
gotten
on that.
somewhere, and then a late fee just shows up, and you're like $3,000 backwards again. So it's just quite frustrating. So I had about at the time I remember it was like 18K, and then what's it I paid off 5,000, and then it reduced to like 13. But then, like I said, late fees. So I at this moment, actually, I never fully paid it off, and I because we had a UIC email. So after a while, the UIC email becomes not invalid, but you have to update your passwords and all of that every year or something. And I just never did. So I don't get emails from them anymore about. I'm sure if I decide to check, I will see
Yeah.
something, but I really don't know. It's been years since I last checked. So, but yeah, I
Yeah,
feel like they should have closed it. They should close their accounts by now. So,
it's
I
it's
don't know.
it's been it's been like 6 years. I
Yeah,
don't know how that works. If what I know about credit card is that after a while, after some years, if the person is no longer in the country, I think they have a way of kind of I don't know, canceling it or something. I don't know how that works, but
they should do that.
the school fees thing, I don't know how that works. I don't know if there is a way they can actually do something about it. Wow, that's a lot of money.
Yeah, it was. It was.
Wow, but I think you should try and then because the dream is the US and it's everyone who has gone through what you've been through. I think the person will still want to be back in the US. So and with your GPA, I think it will be very easy for you to get good funding to come and all of that. But because of your service records, right? So you would have to kind of resolve that issue with UIC, right? Because they would have to, I think they would have to transfer your service records or something to like a new school. I don't know how that works. Wow. So what is the way forward regarding this?
I mean, now that I'm actually done with college, I did think about going back to UIC and just completing the degree just because I mean it was literally just 3 semesters left. So that's
Mm,
something I'm interested in doing, but I haven't really thought of how it's going to come to fruition. So
yeah,
currently, I'm not really keen on going back to school like just yet. So I mean, I've thought of things, but nothing is really concrete or set in stone. It's more just ideas that I'm
yeah,
marinating on, so to speak.
yeah. I think I don't know, but I think you should reach out to the international office and then let them know that you've been away for 6 years and like kind of find out about the status of your account or something. At least that will give you an idea of what is going on that there, right? So that at least you know what to do and all of that. Because here in America, until they cancel it, the record will still be there, right? They will keep that record. Wow, this is not like a pleasant story at all, right? Because the thing is that you've actually overcome the other side, which is the mental issues that you may have had as a result of what you went through and all of that, and you've been able to go through and get like complete your college with a GPA of 4.98 and all of that. So, but it's like this thing is still hanging on your neck, right? It's like once in a while, because yeah, with your
Yeah,
GPA, it will be easy for you to come here, like very, very easy for you to come to do your masters. But I don't know how this thing is going to impact you, like, because we don't know the status of, that.
so
Wow. Yeah.
I haven't really like thought so intensely about things, mostly just because I really haven't looked into schools. Because now everyone's
Yeah.
like, you must do postgraduate, and I'm still, I don't know, I'm still thinking of it. So I haven't really like thought of things, but for sure, I feel like I always said like whatever happens with me in America, that UIC record would still be present. Whether like I
Yeah.
can't, it's in my name. And I think I did have a social security number when I was there, so it's there. It's in my name. It's always going to be there. So it's definitely something I would have to get back to and resolve. I
Yeah.
just never. I've just not gone there yet, or thought that deeply yet. So I think I could start thinking of it now. I'm not making any promises, nothing, but it's
Yeah.
definitely something to think on.
Yeah. I think, yeah, sometimes when there is something, you just have to find out and then know the status and then know what you have to do. If you would have to avoid the US and then just focus on Canada and the UK, that kind of thing too,
I
right?
mean, I feel like
Because,
regardless, even if I decide to ignore it, if I let's say I do end up working in another country, and for some reason I'm in America for something, I feel like it would always follow me. So I would love to one day just have it be done with and completely just paid off and be in good
Yeah.
terms or yeah with them.
Yeah.
I can't really say I know for sure how that would work out.
Yeah.
Just trust
I
that it
I
would work out.
I don't know, but I I just think because you didn't commit any crime, right? So here in America, crime is a big deal, but yours is not like something that you did deliberately, right? So it's like, yeah, I don't know how but yeah, it's not the same thing. It's not crime is something that is a big deal, but yeah, but hopefully, let's see how that goes. Yeah, let's see how that goes. Yeah. So when did you decide to go to college again when you arrived in Nigeria?
So I came back in 2019. So
Mm,
2020, I was still quite keen on
yeah,
going back to
returning.
UIT.
Mm,
I think by 2020 December, I was finally like, okay, this isn't happening anymore. Let me just quote unquote enjoy life.
mm,
So I was more or less just hanging out with friends and just relaxing. But sometimes at the back of my head, it's like, so what exactly are we going to do? Are we going to get a job? What are we going to do? But I wasn't really, I feel like I still wanted to go back to UIC, but I just wasn't sure how I wanted to go about that. I think it was in 2021, I met this lady who has been one of the biggest blessings in my life, honestly. So she invited me for a program, and that program was quite transformative for me. And I remember, so she was actually my neighbor. So by the time the program was over, she just called me to like talk to me and like ask about my life and everything and all of that. So we talked and I explained to her that I was once in school, I had to leave school, and now I'm just doing nothing clearly. And then I don't know how she was able to just convince me to
mm,
just open up my mind to actually schooling in Nigeria because she was like, I think at the time that I had that conversation with her, I really wanted to get back into modeling, start up my business. There's some things I wanted to do that I was trying to see how that would work out. And then she said something that remains so profound to me. She's like, you could still do those things and that's fine. And so like in a couple of years, you may have achieved these things but you would not still have a degree. But if you go back
yeah.
to school, you could still pursue these things. So at the end of those years, you would have a degree and still have these things. And I
Yeah.
feel like I
That's
took
true.
that to heart. And then I started looking at schools in Nigeria. And I feel like that I honestly still don't know how she was able to convince me because my parents tried to convince me and failed, but she did. So I looked up schools. And I remember when I first brought the whole idea to my dad that, okay,
Mm,
this is sort of what I'm thinking of doing. And I mentioned the schools I was looking at and everything. And one thing that he said to me that meant so much to me was that I should just pick a course that I would be good at, that I know I would excel in, which was very different from the father I knew
mm,
years prior, who was just,
yeah.
I wanted to be a doctor, so you must do medicine, you must do that. So that I really, yeah, so I chose chemistry because it's just something I really liked. And that was, I would say, the beginning of an entirely new journey for me. Like finally picking a school and going through the whole admission registration process. So yeah, that was in
So
2021.
so you started school again in 2021. So did you start from the first year or the second year or somewhere?
So I mentioned I did A level. So with that, I was able to do direct entry. So I started from they call it 200 level. So I started from my sophomore year, so my second year. So it was meant to be a 4 year program. So I started from the second year, and so it wasn't like
Mm,
I was starting over. I mean, there really no difference if you're being honest. But I
yeah.
wasn't really like starting over. Starting. I mean, there were some Nigerian schools that were like, oh, you have to start afresh again from like 100 level. But thankfully, the school I chose allowed me to do my direct entry. So that's what I did. And I started from my second year in Caleb
Mm,
University. Yeah.
mm. Yeah, when I read about your story, I thought you transferred credit from University of Illinois Chicago, and I
No,
was confused because if you owe them, like in the conversation, I realized that how would that have been possible? Because they will not even allow you to do that. Yeah. Wow. And so you started all over again. You started from second year, and then how come how come like I don't understand. Like, because after everything that happened in your life, how come you were the best student? Like, how is that possible?
I
Like, because
honestly, I can't. I don't know. Honest, I feel like it was just God. Like, I feel like for one, I really like chemistry. Like, I loved learning
huh?
chemistry and learning more about it, and that was
Wow.
basically what my course was about. And I found it. And I would say this: I feel like Nigerian schools have it easy. The Nigerian students will not agree with me, but having schooled abroad and here, we have it
Mm,
easy. Honestly, we don't
wow.
do as okay, not really. We know that we don't do as many courses, but so like an example, with UIC, you're writing an exam, it's answer all. You don't have choices on what you want
Mm,
to answer. You have to answer everything. In my school in Nigeria, it was like, let's say they give you 6 questions, you answer four. So you basically you would choose the questions you think you are stronger at. So it's like you are helping yourself. And
yeah.
people may not see it the way I see, but and also in UIC, our A's were relative, so depends on the course. So like let's say you take a course and a lot of students quote unquote failed the course. Like the highest was a 70 over 100. They will then readjust their marking
Mm,
scheme to make 70 the A and then everything
okay.
else below that. With Nigerian universities, their A starts from 70 to 100. And I feel like that it might I feel like Nigerians not if you're Nigerian you're watching this that's honestly my prerogative.
Yeah, I
You
mean
have
that's yeah.
70 to 100 to make an A. That is a lot of leeway, like
Yeah.
70 to 100. UIC, some courses were 80 to 100, 90 to 100. And the physics I failed, it was 90 to 100. I think I got 88.
Wow.
So
Ah.
exactly. So it wasn't like, but Nigerian students don't see it as that. So I feel like we had Nigerian schools are more graceful in that regard. UIC not so much. So for me, not that it wasn't hard, but I don't know.
So which means in Nigeria you didn't study as much as you used to study when you were at UIC, right?
I don't know. I feel not. I wouldn't say yes to that because I did actually study and I put effort into my work. And I feel like with UIC, the what I liked about UIC was the fact that you get to choose what courses you want to do. In
Mm,
Nigeria, you don't have that luxury. You do what the school tells you to do. So I feel like
yeah.
with UIC, you could. I remember I dropped a music class because I hated music in high school. I can't do music again.
Mm,
I placed out of French. So you had that choice to pick. So most times you could pick a subject because you like the teacher or something, but we didn't have that luxury in KLF. So obviously I had to read more. Not really,
yeah.
not I think not just say read more or read or put in more effort than UIC. Because I remember
Mm,
there was a semester I took only 3 courses at UIC, and in KLF minimum we could take was like six to like, the time I was taking up to 11. So and that never happened at UIC. And you get to pick your schedule. Like if you want to have an 8 a.m. is your choice. You want to have a 3 p.m., 4 p.m. class is your choice. With
mm,
Nigerian schools, you take whatever the school gives to you. So there
yeah.
were positive. So that was there. So I feel like
Mm,
I know that I can't really say I put in more work in a place than I in another place. I just sort of adapted to the system that was around me and worked with that. If that makes sense.
yeah. Yeah. The reason I asked this question, okay, is that when I look at your GPAs, right, at UIC you got 3.98 out of 4.0, and then at Caleb University you got 4.98 out of 5.0. So you lost 0.02 in each of them. So like they look similar. They are not exactly the same, but then they are very similar, right, in a way. So with the Nigerian one too, what happened to the 0.02?
It was I don't know why. I feel like if your marking guy is like let's say 80 to 100 is A. If
Yeah.
someone gets to 78, you should just round it up. That's
No,
I don't know. I
that's
feel like it's just wicked.
that's
It's just mean. I think it's just mean. Like so for me, it was actually a chemistry course. I got a
but you
so
love
I mentioned
chemistry.
exact. It gets better. So I mentioned that A's were from 70 to 100.
Yeah.
In this course, I got 68. Like you could just give me my 70, like nothing
Yeah.
would happen. Like you could give me my 70,
Uh
but the teacher
68,
was
68 is very low. What happened?
not okay. So what exact I think what's funny is that for most of my courses I actually tried to make sure all my A's were like very high. So no one questions how I got my score.
Yeah.
So honestly, so with that one, the teacher that taught us the course, he was quite, I don't think strict is not the word, but he was quite particular about his questions and his
Mm,
answers. And I remember the exam for that course, I made like really, really stupid mistakes. And looking back, I feel like if I had just trusted my gut and not changed some of my answers, I would have actually gotten my A. But I feel like just it happened just because, like, I won't say that was supposed to happen. It just happened because. So it was little mistakes that caused me
mm,
to not get like a high A in that grade or in that course, and
yeah.
that was how I got my 68. So
Mm.
yeah.
Wow. As someone who graduated as the overall best student, right, of a Nigerian institution, I'm just, wondering how you study. Is there something that helps you when you are studying?
Okay, for me, it wasn't like something I did that I can say this was the main thing that helped
Mm,
me. But one thing I'd say really helped me was actually liking my course. Because like when I was reading, it didn't feel so burdensome or too bulky because I enjoyed what I was
mm,
reading. And I remember there was a friend of mine, we started reading together, I think in our third year. And
mm,
there was a day we were not supposed to read. We went to take a break from reading and just relax. And I remember I was talking to her and I was like, I ended up reading my book. And she was like, why? I was like, I don't know. I just thought it was really interesting. So that, so I found, so I literally could read chemistry just because it was chemistry. So that really
mm,
helped me. And I was able to actually understand my courses. I take pride in being able to understand something and not just like cram it and vomit it out to the teacher. So like if I understand it properly, I could explain what I understand to you. So I really enjoyed understanding my courses. So if I had a problem, I would ask my teachers. But in regards to reading, I actually spent a good amount of time reading my. Like I said, I like chemistry, so it was fun to read my books. I don't really like calculation chemistry, so that wasn't really fun. But and the beauty of chemistry or with my courses was that most of them really blended in together. So we
mm,
could be doing process science, and then we're doing colors and textiles, and we're learning the process of making colors or learning the process. Like it was, they were very, very intertwined. So it was easy to just sort of translate or transcend from like one course to another. And that happened right from 300 level to 400. So it was just very nice. And it was like once you understand it, it
mm,
becomes easy to just sort of flow with your teachers. So with my reading, I did try to read every night, and I think I also did that at UIC though. But I don't think at UIC I didn't have like such a rigid timetable at UIC. But with Caleb, I did have a strict schedule with myself. I read 7 to 10 every night, but then I started taking breaks. I wasn't like reading every single night. But
mm.
I do actually read, and because I liked chemistry, like I keep saying it, it was easy. So, because some people do find it hard to read so much, but when you enjoy something, it just comes naturally that you want to keep doing it. So that was something that really really helped me. So, an
Mm.
advice to someone: just study something you like. Don't just do something because. So once you like something, any struggle
So,
you face, it's like it's rewarding. I don't know.
mm. So
That's
you
my
mean
thing.
if I enjoy something and then I read it, I'm going to understand it? Is that what you mean? Don't you have like, like a strategy,
I feel
like
like
maybe taking notes or something, to make sure whatever you are reading, you translate it on a paper? Do you have anything like that, or you just read and then everything stays in your
I
brain?
did I did have jottings actually. I did have
Mm,
jottings. So in class, I would take notes of what the teacher is saying. And one thing I like, my notes are not very explanatory. It makes sense to me when I'm reading. A lot of people like to like write every single detail. I only write the quote unquote important details. And then what I usually do, like my first time I'm reading a note, I would take notes with it, like jottings. Then subsequent times I'm just reading it, not really taking notes anymore. I don't
mm,
know, that it worked for me. I could literally just be reading my chemistry note like a novel, and what I'm reading is staying in my mind. So that works for me. Then sometimes I could go over my jottings, and so I don't really have like a do this, don't do this with reading. I just enjoy
yeah.
it. I can literally just sit down and read my chemistry textbook like a novel, and what
Mm,
I'm reading is actually staying. So because I liked it, so that
mm.
that works for
I
me.
guess I guess I can say. you are different from a lot of us. So maybe
Maybe,
that's
maybe,
why.
maybe.
Yeah, I guess you're different from a lot of us. So yeah. But one of the things that I actually struggle with has to do with, staying focused. I am distracted a lot when it comes to studying, like especially now that I am actually tired of being in school. Like I'm very tired. I don't want to be in school again, right? So I struggle with school stuff. Like when I go to class, sometimes my mind is on a video that I have to edit, stuff. So I go to class and I don't really, want to pay attention and all of that. But how do you stay focused? Do you use social media a lot?
Yes, yes. I like to think I'm a social butterfly. I enjoy going to
Ah,
places. I don't. I won't say I'm a content creator, but I like creating stuff. I like
mm,
sourcing myself. So yes, I for sure like to have a good time. I feel like when people hear my CGPA, they're like, "Oh, she's always reading. She doesn't have fun," which is very. Everyone that knows me personally knows that's not the joy they
yeah,
know. So I would say for me, what worked rather was just to like be present in each moment. Like if I'm in school, I'm in school and I'm
mm,
focused on my books. When I'm at home, I'm
mm,
doing anything else. And I would say
yeah,
with Nigerian schools, with Nigerian private schools rather, um, when because most of we all stay in the school, like we don't commute from school, we're all
yeah,
boarders and everything. So I always say this to students I speak to is like you
mm,
may think you're in school for 4 years, but the reality of it is that you're not in like the amount of time you spend in school is less than the amount of time you spend at home. It's like a semester could be like 2 3 months, so you have the rest of the time to stay at home. So like, and
yeah,
with private schools, you can't just like there are lots of rules and strictness that comes with being in private school in Nigeria. So it's like there's like you're in school, so just be in school. Don't like bother with what is going on outside, with a party
yeah,
somewhere or so I'm in school for being in school sake. So when I was in school, I was focused on being in school. And
mm,
then when I was at home, I was doing something else because I do have a small business. I was in a relationship at a point when I was in school. So it wasn't just like I was just book, 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 book. I did have like I do go out. I used to leave school to go out. Not no, I take that back. But I exactly so I did have that. So it wasn't like I was just. But in regards to like social media, with my reading times, I did mention 7 to 10. It was not really like I was reading my book the entire 3 hours. Sometimes I could take a break to respond to a text message, to call somebody, to scroll on Instagram, to talk to a friend, to eat. So I did have those because I do realize it's hard. It actually is hard to like spend like an extensive amount of time just reading a book. So I do take breaks with my reading. So
mm,
that helped me a lot. But one thing I would say is just to be present in each moment you are in. I feel like that's like the perfect work-life balance. Like
yeah,
if you're at work, be present at work.
yeah,
When you're at home, be present at home with whoever
yeah,
you are. So that really helped me. So
mm,
yeah.
yeah. That makes sense. Did you have a routine as a student?
I had. I was quite strict on myself at
Mm,
Caleb. So it was like, okay, so I don't know, the school system in Nigeria, it definitely needs some tweaking too. Because having come from a school that had so much leeway, like no one really cares if you go out or anything, to a school that they have curfew and dress codes and all of that was quite a
mm,
change, honestly.
yeah,
Well, I would say that the Caleb University, their rules helped me in ways that I could never, like, I would be able to have done by myself.
mm,
If there was like a social, like with UIC, there was always something going on. So if you decide you don't want to read that night, you could always find something to do. But with
mm,
Caleb, you're stuck in your hostel. What you
yeah,
want, and even if you had social events, our social events ended at 5 p.m., which is quite early. So you still have like the rest of the night to do whatever you want. We don't stay in the same hostel with guys. So
mm,
you can't say I was gonna stay in my boyfriend's room or visit my boyfriend. You're stuck with your female. Like there, I feel like
yeah,
there was really not much for me. There was not that much to do but my books. So I mean, other people can say differently, can speak for themselves. I mean, Caleb did have some sports. Some people had clubs, but none of that really spoke to me. So I, because the IUIC, I was involved in so many. No, I was involved in things at UIC, but I wasn't really doing that at Caleb because those things didn't really speak to me. So I feel like I had nothing
Mm,
else to do but my books. So I was quite strict with myself. So in the morning, so my
yeah.
class would maybe be from like 8 to 4. So I'll go for my class. Well, not really 8 to 4. You could have breaks in between, but let's just say 8 to 4. Then from there, I
Mm,
get my food, go to the hostel, take a nap, wake up, read, repeat. That was basically my schedule. I didn't really have like a
okay.
club or a
Yeah.
party that I was like excited. Like, so yeah, I
Yeah.
so I was quite
Do you check
strict.
your phone the first, as soon as you wake up? Do you check your phone, or you do other things before you check your phone?
I don't want to say yes. I'm trying to change it.
Okay, so the answer is yes. Okay, the
Yes,
answer is yes, but that's okay. You are human.
yeah.
So I don't always check my phone the first time, but the first,
So
like, as the first thing I do when I wake up. But sometimes I do actually. Sometimes I check my phone. Like when you post something, sometimes you want to make sure, be- because so there are certain days that I post videos, right, and I schedule them. My LinkedIn post, I schedule them. Some of my Instagram stuff, things, I kind of schedule them. And so when I wake up, then it's like I want to post to other platforms that I've not been able to schedule those posts. So it's like, when I wake up, it's like what I want to do, right? So, but it's okay. There's nothing wrong. We are human beings, and some of these things, they are really difficult for us, right? As someone who has had big achievements and also big disappointments, I'm sure a lot of people have reached out to you, so many times. What is the most common question they ask you?
honestly, right now, the questions I get asked the most is how did I achieve my
Yeah,
CGPA, and also like how I was able to adapt to having to leave America. That's
yeah,
the second top question I get
yeah,
asked. So yeah, those two.
yeah. Those are actually the top two questions, right? One has to do with a big achievement. One has to do with a big disappointment. Yeah, that makes. So if I come to you, sorry. Oh, okay, I thought you said something. Okay, yeah. So let's say I come to you. I'm in my third year with a GPA of 2.8, and I want to study abroad, and so I need to get a better GPA. So I come to you to help me study better and improve my GPA. Hopefully, get above 3.0. Do you have like steps that you can give me? Because somebody like you, I feel like you can actually come up with like steps that people can use to improve their GPS or something. Like, maybe is there something you can tell me, or I should just understand that you are different from everybody?
I would say honestly that there's
Yeah.
no shortcut to success. You actually have to
Mm,
put in the work. So if you want your grades to go up, I would say to actually put in the work and read. And
mm,
that's one thing I've noticed with Nigerian students at school in Nigeria, because they don't actually read their books. Like, speaking from someone who had roommates that actually never read until exam, that was their life. They would just wait until exams or tests.
yeah.
I didn't. I always read my books. So whenever I had tests or exams, I wasn't like scrambling to like learn something. I was just
Yeah.
going over what I already knew. So that helped me.
Yeah.
And there were
Mm,
times when I had impromptu tests. I wasn't like
yeah.
struggling. Even if I don't remember exactly what I read, I would know some things right in my notes. So for me, my biggest advice to actually be to put in the work and to not just wait until it's time for you to read. Like, just read like from the beginning so you're under, because the
Mm,
thing is that your courses will build on themselves. So if you do not understand the first classes you had, chances are you may not understand forthcoming
yeah.
classes. So just best
Mm,
to like do all those before. So my biggest advice to honestly be to like put in the work. Don't stockpile. I tried not to let my work wait for me. I always try to be on top of my schedule. Like, I have this
mm,
assignment, I was taught this thing, I want to understand it before the next class or before the next week. So that's my biggest thing. Because being in Caleb University, you could literally count on like one hand how many people read consistently. And I was in hostel of over 200 girls, so you could see how bad, not bad, but you get my point. That was literally what people were doing. Most people just spend their nights playing. So I mean, and like I said, you spend more time at home than in school. So why not just focus where you're in school? And like the 7 to 10 is not, and when I say like I only read 7 to 10, people don't believe it. They expect that I was reading the entire time I was in school,
Mm,
which was not true. Or my
yeah.
during my weekends, I did not read until my same 7 to 10. So like my entire weekend was for everything else. So people complain they don't have time, but you do have that time. Like my weekends, I was doing everything else with my friends, watching a movie, doing laundry. So like I did do other things but read my books. I
Mm,
just read my books every single day at a certain time, but people just don't do that. So I feel like my biggest thing will actually be to put in the work. And then I would say, even with putting in the work, you may come across things you don't understand even after doing your reading. So I
mm,
always tried to ask questions in class. And one thing that
yeah.
helped me was that I never wanted to leave a class confused. So I always attended my classes as best as I could. Like
Yeah.
unless I was sick or not in school, I was always in my class. And I don't really like the front seat. So I hate when people say things like it's only those in the front that pass. It pisses me off because I don't like the front. I just don't. I would rather the middle, not really the back, but the middle. So I
Yeah.
just attend your classes and I do pay attention. So like I want to understand what the teacher is saying while it is being said. So even
Mm,
when I'm doing like my personal reading, I'm just refreshing my memory of what I already heard in class. So like if the teacher makes say something I don't really understand, I would ask a question in class. And then maybe while I'm reading, I see some more things I don't understand. I would ask it in the next class. And I'll say the beauty of what I had with Caleb versus UIC was that with Caleb, we had smaller classes. So the maximum, okay, except from our general courses, the maximum we were ever in a class was like, let's say 50 or 55. But with UIC, a course like organic chemistry or physics, you could have at least 100 people in class.
wow.
And you would definitely, you may feel shyer to ask a question in that kind of, everybody's like looking around, who's that person that is extending our period? But with Caleb, that really wasn't there. So I was able to, even in UIC, I did ask questions, honestly. But it was easier because in Caleb, I could ask like 10 questions in the class. But
Mm,
UIC, it gets overwhelming. Now, why is this one person in a class of 100 students? Why is it only you? And I would say another thing was that with Caleb, we had more of an access to our teachers than at UIC. At
wow.
UIC, you could only speak to them during office hours or tutoring times and all of that. But with Caleb, my teachers actually made an effort to be friends with us. Like to days, I still speak to some of them. So I would say that
Mm,
was something I thoroughly enjoyed while I was at Caleb. My teachers, so like if I had a problem, not even if it wasn't just with school stuff, if it was like with a personal problem, I could bring it to my teachers and be like, "This is what I'm going through," and they will be willing to help. So that really changed my perspective on teachers. So I would say also have a good relationship with your teachers because once you do, you're able to ask them questions. They are able to help you because these are people that all my teachers were actually doctors, so they've done BSc, done masters. So like they are people that are well versed in these things
mm,
and they were willing to help. So definitely ask questions, attend your classes as best as you can and pay attention. I feel like it's things that people know to do but they just don't do if you're being honest with
yeah.
ourselves. So
Because it's hard.
so yeah, I feel like who I talk to, like they know they should do these things, but for reasons unknown to me, maybe they are because someone even I think I had like a little talk session with like a bunch of freshers in Caleb University, and most of them was the same thing, like oh they don't read, they have friends that don't read, they have friends that are distracting. So it's like I don't know, the issues
Yeah.
are the same. It's just left for you to
Yeah.
actually do what needs to be done.
Is Caleb University the best university in Nigeria? Because the things you are saying, it looks like it's not the typical thing that universities back in
I
Africa do,
mean,
right?
okay.
Because yeah, I have also gone through the Ghanaian system, and I feel like the universities here they actually give more attention to students, and they are more the professors are more available to students, like back home and all. So like what you're saying is like, yeah, I'm just confused. Is it a private university, and is it the best university in Nigeria?
I wouldn't say it's the best university in Nigeria. I feel like this we did they had like a what's it called? They released a list also last year of best universities in Nigeria. I don't think Caleb was the top. But I feel like students in other schools have because even I have some negative things to say about Caleb. I'm just talking about
Okay,
like personal experience.
positive.
But the
Okay.
school I would say they did the best that they could and it's just left to you to either I feel like you could either see a cup as half full or half empty.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't the best, but it wasn't the worst. It was there. Like I have pros to UIC, pros to KLab, cons to UIC, cons to KLab. I'm sure other students in other
Yeah,
schools
that
will
makes
have
sense. Yeah.
something to
Okay.
say. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. My last question to you has to do with, normally when you arrive in your home country after traveling abroad, some people might be disrespectful to you, right? Like mean to you in a way. In like, did you experience anything like that? Did anybody disrespect you or treat you badly because you returned from, the US? Did you experience anything
Not
like that?
really, actually.
Okay.
I feel like I mentioned, people didn't really know the specifics of why I came home up
Mm.
until my GoFundMe. So no one really treated me as different or anything.
But what about
It was
after that?
mostly it was mostly people just fascinated. Like Nigerians are fascinated with a lot of things. So if they see a
Mm.
white person, they get overly excited. So after my GoFundMe,
Yeah.
I did notice that people began to view me differently, but
Negatively?
it wasn't really people closest to me. It was
Okay.
mostly like
Yeah.
maybe
Then
someone I
yeah.
knew from
Yeah.
someone. So those closest to me, I feel like they were more empathetic and sympathetic to my entire cause,
Mm.
because like they knew me, and I just feel like you would never really expect something like that to happen to someone you know. It's
Yeah.
mostly things you sort of just see. So I feel like that for me was, and even if I'm being honest, I feel like when the whole story sort of came out to GoFundMe, even people that I hadn't spoken to in years, when they saw it, they reached out just like with full empathy. So like I never had like anybody specifically
Yeah.
like saying something mean to me. I
Mm.
feel like most of the mean comments I heard was from someone else, like, "Oh, this person said this,"
Yeah.
and so it wasn't like directed at me specific. Like, I don't know, maybe there was, but I don't really remember, because I feel like I was initially very scared about the whole GoFundMe thing. So I was like, now people know the truth. But I was like, if at least don't say I tried, I wouldn't really know if I would have been able to pay my. I really wouldn't have known, because I was able to pay like over 5,000 from the GoFundMe
Yeah.
money that I raised. So that really, so like just knowing that these people were willing to help out was, I
Mm.
honestly think it
Yeah.
was such a blessing. So I don't really think I had like any negative, like personally, had like a negative story or instance from
Yeah.
somebody regarding my entire experience.
Yeah. Man, you have an amazing story. Like, and right now I feel like after everything that you've overcome, I think right now you can only look up, right? Because it looks like with that achievement, like, the worst has already passed, I think, because yeah, right now it looks like,
Okay,
yeah.
I don't want anything worse than that.
Yeah, because like when I look at my own life, I've been through some stuff, and I feel like it cannot get worse than it had been in the past. So it's like, yeah, because yeah, I mean, wow, yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Do you have any final words to say, if you want to say hi to anybody, or if you just want to give advice
I
or
would
anything?
say
Yeah,
one thing that my journey has really taught me is that no instance is a permanent situation. Like life is
yeah,
so temporal. Like
yeah,
you may think you're going through like the worst thing you could go through, but one day you're going to wake up and be in, like an entirely different phase, and you're going
yeah,
to look back and be like, "How did I think that was the
yeah,
worst life could be?" So it's just that life just goes on. So instead of, and like I understand that while you're going through something, it's okay to like be sad and feel all the feels, but never think that life doesn't get better, because it does. And even like when I look back at my UIC experience, I remember there were days I cried like nonstop. I remember one of my birthdays, I was just upset and crying. But like now I can look back at those moments and laugh. Honestly, if you
yeah,
told me in those moments that I would be laughing about them, I wouldn't have thought that. But
yeah,
now I'm on the other side, so to speak, and I feel
yeah,
totally different. So honestly, my advice would just be to like never dwell too much in situations. Definitely, you have a right to feel upset and feel everything, but just know life goes on. Like it will not be the same thing forever. So that's honestly just my
yeah.
advice. So I'll say maybe just like accept or walk in, I don't know, I don't want to say comfortability, but just try to embrace every moment,
Yeah.
sad, good, all of that, because
Yeah.
you really don't know what happens next. I think
Yeah.
that's those are like my last couple of words or anything.
Yeah. That's powerful. Thank you very much.